The great hall of the Galactic Council looked like a calm ocean made of glass and light, but the calm was not real. Leaders from 100 worlds sat in high seats, shining in their colors, speaking in proud voices about fleets and borders and taxes. They joked about small wars and traded insults like it was a game. They laughed when weak species were mentioned. They smiled when pirates were crushed. And when mercenaries sold their loyalty for more credits. But every time the word human appeared on a report, the noise changed. The voices went soft. The smiles died. The air felt heavier, like cold wind, had moved through the room and stayed there. Older warlords looked at the floor. Younger ministers looked at their screens and pretended not to hear. The name of Earth did not make them angry. It made them quiet. A young envoy named Island noticed. At first, Island was small, with silver scales that reflected the hall's white lights. He had learned to read the council the way pilots read a storm. He liked to see how power moved. He liked to understand what others tried to hide. In his first week, serving his homeworld, he watched a curious pattern. Jokes and pride, when most species were named. But silence, when Earth's special forces were written in a briefing line. So he asked his mentor, an old counselor with gold bands on his arms. "Why do we go quiet?" Island asked, in a low voice during a recess. "We laugh at everyone else. Why not at humans?" The counselor did not answer at once. He watched the room like a man watching a battlefield map. "Because we are not fools," he said at last. "We are many things, Island. We are greedy. We are proud. Sometimes we are cruel, but we are not fools." "I do not understand," Island said. "Humans are young. Their fleets are not the largest. Their worlds are not the richest." The old counselor's gold bands clicked together as he folded his hands. Young rivers can still drown armies, and small knives can still cut throats. That night, Island could not sleep. His quarters on the council spire were quiet and safe, but the silence felt strange now. He looked out at the city world below, at the cold lights and the wide traffic lanes where ships moved like blue veins across steel. He opened the secure network on his console and searched for records with the tag Earth Special Forces. Most files were locked. A few had been scrubbed until they were only dates and code names, but some remained. He opened the oldest open one. It was a short report from a minor war long ago. A pirate lord on the rim had taken 3 colony worlds and hired mercenary fleets to hold them. The local empires were slow to respond. Then a small human task group appeared, silent and alone. The pirate lord fled on day 3. The mercenary fleets left on day 4. The colonies reported no major battle, no long siege, no lists of dead. The report ended with a single line. Human ground teams on site for 18 hours/hostile. The command structure removed. Island stared at the line for a long time. Ground teams. 18 hours. No battle recorded, but an enemy command gone, as if cut out of the heart of the war. He opened another file. A border crisis this time. 2 proud empires shouted about a line of empty space, ready to send 1,000,000 soldiers to die for a map. Then the news spread that Earth might observe for peace. The crisis ended 2 days later. No shots fired. The phrase Earth observing appeared only once, and then vanished from public channels. He checked a third file. A mercenary guild's private message thread had leaked to the council archives long ago. The words were rough, written by killers who sold their guns to the highest bidder. But in the thread there was a hard rule written in simple language. Do not accept contracts where humans are listed as special operations on the other side. No pay is worth it. There were no jokes under that rule, only agreement. Island breathed out slowly. He felt a small, tight feeling in his chest, a mix of fear and curiosity. He wanted to know more, wanted to see the shape behind the shadow. Why did pirates run? Why did mercenaries refuse? Why did empires settle when Earth only watched? He took a risk. I sent a message to a contact in the archivum, the hidden library beneath the council tower, where old files went to sleep, and sometimes woke again. The archivum keeper was a tall, thin alien named Voss, whose eyes never blinked at the same time. Voss did not care about laws, only about records, liked puzzles. He liked young people who asked dangerous questions, You want to see the dark corridors? Voss said, when Island arrived at his office under the hall. Many walk the bright halls above. A few come down here. I want to see Truth Island, said, or at least its shadow. Voss tilted his head. Truth has many shadows. Humans cast a long one. He touched a crystal pad, and a cold blue light filled the room. You will not take copies. You will not speak names. You will not. Quote me if you do, you will not return here. Agreed. Agreed. The first file Voss opened had no emblem, only a title. Silent Storm, After Action Redacted. The text was thin, like bone. It spoke of a city on a hostile world where an enemy alliance had built a command hub under the streets. Orbital strikes would kill millions of innocent people. Siege would take months and cost fleets. The document recorded a plan proposed by Earth's Special Forces: insert 6 teams at night. Move through the Undercity, cut the command in 27 places at once, and leave before dawn. The line that followed made Island swallow. Operation. Success: enemy command removed / civilian casualties, minimal total time on target, 3 hours 41 minutes. Is this real? Island asked. Voss did not smile. I have seen the city. Streets above still stand. The war ended in a week. Another file, Ghost Field audio extract. It was not words on a page now. It was sound. A small room. A voice that shook. An alien officer, old and tired, speaking in a confession hall. I thought they were a myth, the officer said. I thought the helmets and the silence were only stories for children. Then the lights went out, and one of them stood at the end of the corridor, calm as stone. He did not shout. He did not boast. He said, you can keep your soldiers alive if you open the door. I opened it. What door? Island whispered. The door to the command center, Voss said. He saved 1,000 enemy soldiers by ending the war with a key instead of a bomb. Island felt the tightness in his chest grow stronger. He had expected hero tales with bright banners or horror tales with screaming. He had not expected simple, cold skill. He had not expected mercy inside efficiency. Why do the mercenaries refuse? Island asked. They love money. They love risk, because they love breath more, Voss said. He opened one last file. It showed a list of contracts with notes beside them. Next to some was a small, sharp mark, HSF present. Every time that mark appeared, the payment demand from the mercenary guilds tripled, then doubled again. Then the word declined appeared. At the bottom, someone had typed a short guideline for guild captains. If humans are the knife, we will not be the meat. A soft chime echoed through the archivum. The council's next session was about to begin. Voss dimmed the light. Go, he said. Ask your questions in the bright hall if you dare. Island walked back up the long lift shaft. He looked at his hands and saw they were shaking. Did not know if it was fear or excitement. Maybe it was both. When he returned to the great hall, the leaders were already taking their seats. The agenda moved like a river: trade routes, border patrols, a debate about attacks. Then the hall screens flashed with a priority message. A frontier world had gone silent. A mining station near an unstable gate had sent a distress call, and then nothing. Pirates, someone said. A rival empire, someone else said. The room filled with noise again. The prime speaker asked, who will investigate? A dozen flags lifted. Mercenary guilds offered fast ships and eager guns. A proud empire offered a cruiser task group. A small republic offered scouts. Then a simple, quiet message appeared at the bottom of the screen. Earth offers observation and advisory support. Special forces available if the council requests. The room changed. The noise fell away, like birds startled into the air. No one laughed. Now, no one shouted. Even the proud empire lowered its flag just a little. Island stood. He felt many eyes turned toward him. He was only an envoy, new and untested. But he had seen the shadow in the dark corridors, and he could not pretend he had not. Prime Speaker, he said, voice steady, I request the floor. The Prime Speaker looked surprised, then curious. Granted. Island looked around the hall. He saw fear sitting in strong chairs. He saw pride hiding behind silence. He saw the question hanging above them all like a blade. Spoke the words he had carried since the first whisper. "Why?" he asked. "Do we fear humans so much?" No one answered. Not at first. The question floated through the hall and landed on every desk. A few leaders shifted in their seats. A few stared at the walls. The old counselor with the gold bands watched Island and gave the smallest nod, as if to say yes. "Turn on the lights." The prime speaker cleared her throat. "It is a fair question," she said. "Perhaps it is time we speak plainly." On the main screen, the offer from Earth remained quiet, patient. Like a door half open in a dark corridor, Island felt the hall's breath waiting, and somewhere far out in the cold, where the frontier world had gone silent and the unstable gate flickered like a dying star, a small human ship changed course and did not broadcast a warning. It needed none. The fear in the great hall spread like frost on glass. The Galactic Council chamber was still heavy from the envoy's question. Why do we fear humans so much? The words had cut the air like a blade. Leaders avoided each other's eyes. Some tapped at their consoles. Others sat too still, as if movement might draw attention. No answer came that day, and the session ended early, cloaked in unease. Island, the young envoy, left the chamber with his chest tight. He had seen how the questions spread like a crack through polished glass. He had seen proud empires suddenly silent. But silence was not enough. He needed truth, wanted to know what the galaxy hid. That night, under the pale glow of the council, Towers Island slipped back into the archivum. Mervoss, the keeper of forgotten files, met him with a crooked smile. "You stirred the hall," Voss said, his strange eyes blinking one at a time. "It is rare to see silence in a place made of voices. You want to go deeper now? Into the places even silence fears?" "Yes," Island said, though his voice shook. "Show me what the council hides." Earth 5 to 7 minutes. The keeper led him into a narrow corridor, lined with sealed vaults of data crystals. The walls glowed faintly blue, like veins carrying frozen fire. With each door they passed, the air felt heavier, as though the shadows themselves had weight. "These are the old wars," Voss whispered. "The ones polished out of public records, the ones no one speaks of unless drunk, dying, or both." He stopped at a vault marked only with a simple emblem, a broken sword over a burning star. With careful hands, he pressed a sequence into the lock. The door slid open, and a cold wave of data spilled into the chamber. The first file flickered. Into life. Battle of Redhaven. Island's breath caught. The file showed a wide planetary plain, armies lined in neat ranks, banners shining above alien war machines. The enemy was strong, united, and well-armed. They expected a long, glorious siege. But then, the file shifted. Shadows appeared between their lines. Silent figures, fast and precise. Human special forces. The hala shook as commanders shouted in panic. Units broke without warning. Siege engines stopped moving. Communications collapsed. By nightfall, the enemy army had vanished, not retreated, not surrendered, but erased. The record ended with a chilling phrase: operational time, 19 hours. Human casualties, minimal enemy command, neutralized. Island turned pale. How can that be real? Armies do not just vanish. Voss opened another file. This one was not a battlefield log, but a recording of testimony. An old alien soldier sat in a chair, his armor dented, his eyes empty. His voice was low, trembling. "They did not fight like us," the soldier whispered. "We built walls. They walked through them, shouted orders. They moved in silence. Fired volleys, but they were gone before the bolt struck. My company had 1,000 soldiers. By dawn, I was the only one left breathing. They let me live to carry the warning." "What warning?" Ilon asked, leaning forward. The old soldier's face twisted with remembered fear. "That when humans come, the war is already over. You just do not know it yet." The archivum lights flickered as more files appeared. Black Sands Incident. A desert world where mercenaries abandoned their posts the moment human boots touched the ground. Whisper Station, an orbital fortress gone dark, its walls intact, but every officer inside vanished. Broken Moon Campaign. An empire split in two after human infiltration teams erased their ruling council in a single night. Every file had the same note. Special Forces identified. Island's hands trembled. Why hide this? Why not tell the galaxy? Voss closed the files with a sharp motion. Because fear keeps balance. If every empire knew the scale of what humans can do, they would not fight them. They would not even stand near them. Trade would stop, treaties would shatter, entire sectors would live in terror. Maybe they already do, Island said softly. Back. In his quarters, Island replayed the words of the survivor in his mind. When humans come, the war is already over. He stared out at the endless city below, the ships darting like sparks in the dark. His people had sent him to the council to learn, to watch, to rise in power one day. But he knew now his mission had changed. He had to uncover the full truth. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was forbidden. When the council gathered the next day, the prime speaker announced new trouble. The mining station near the unstable gate was still silent. Fleets were ready to investigate, but none wanted to lead. Offers came slow. Cautious, careful, Island rose. Prime Speaker, he said boldly, before we send fleets into the dark, we must answer the questions still burning in this hall. Why do mercenaries refuse to fight if humans are present? Why do pirates flee? Why does even an empire tremble? A murmur ran through the chamber. Some scowled at his youth. Others shifted uneasily. The prime speaker tapped her staff. Do you suggest, Envoy, that Earth itself is behind the silence at the frontier? I suggest, Island said, voice steady, that if humans are there, no one else will dare be. The words spread across the chamber. Eyes turned to the Earth delegation. They were small in number, dressed simply, quiet as stone. One of the man officer, with short black hair and unreadable eyes, met Island's gaze. For the briefest moment, Island felt a chill, as if the human had already measured him, weighed him, and chosen whether he would live or die. The moment passed. The human looked away, as calm as a shadow, and still. No one answered the envoy's question. That night, new whispers raced through the city world. Tales of Red Haven, of Whisper Station, of mercenary guilds refusing contracts. Old files resurfaced in dark bars and secret rooms. Everywhere Island went, the same phrase returned like an echo. When the special forces arrive, there is no fight, only the end. But Island needed more than whispers. He needed proof, not just shadows of old battles. And so, with heart pounding, he planned his next step, to find a living mercenary captain who had once stood against humans, survived. The council chambers were restless. Reports still came from the frontier. A mining station dark, a gate unstable, no signals returning. Fleets offered to send scouts, but none wanted to lead. The name of Earth had been whispered, and that alone was enough to weigh on every word. Yet the prime speaker, tired of silence, pushed forward. We will need mercenaries, she declared. Their speed, their numbers, their willingness to take risks. Send offers to the guilds. Double the pay if needed. The words echoed across the chamber. Within hours, the message reached every mercenary hall in the core worlds. Rich contracts, heavy bonuses, full authority to strike. But the answer came back fast, and it stunned even the proudest empires. The mercenaries refused. In a shadowed guild hall on Kale Prime, the largest mercenary leaders gathered. The air smelled of steel, oil, and bitter smoke. Their faces were scarred, their eyes sharp from years of war. These were killers who fought for money, men and women who had charged into hopeless battles for credits and glory. But tonight, when the contract screens lit up with the council's offer, no one moved to sign. A heavy silence filled the hall. Then the guildmaster, a broad reptilian with scales like rusted iron, growled low. They want us at the frontier, he said. They want us where the station fell silent. Big pay. Easy money, some would think. Then why hesitate? One younger captain asked. We fought worse. We've bled worse. The guildmaster turned his eyes, hard as stone. Because the contract mentions Earth's special forces. The words froze the hall. One by one, the captains looked away from their screens. The younger mercenary swallowed. And they are only human soldiers. Small numbers, limited ships. An older captain spat on the floor. His hand shook when he wiped his mouth. You've never seen them? The young one frowned. Stories. Rumors. Nothing more. The guildmaster slammed his claw against the table. Do you think mercenaries fear stories? Do you think we refuse gold because of whispers? He leaned forward, his voice like grinding metal. We refuse because we want to live. At the back of the hall, an old mercenary stood slowly. His armor was patched a dozen times, his face lined with scars. His name was Rallan Vesk, one of the few still breathing who had faced humans in battle. Tell him, the guildmaster ordered. Rallan's eyes were hollow, like caves with no light. His voice was gravel. They don't fight like us. They don't fight like anyone. We make noise, they make silence. They bring armies. They bring shadows. We fight for pay. They fight until there is nothing left standing. The day I met them, I lost an entire division before the suns had set. My men did not even see the faces of their killers. The younger captain scoffed, though his voice was less certain. Every army has losses. Maybe you were unlucky. Rallan's stare cut in two. Him? Unlucky? You think unlucky means an ambush or bad terrain or betrayal. But this was no accident. They planned every breath of the battle before we even landed. They knew where we would step, where we would hide, where we would try to run. When they came, it was not war, it was judgment. The hall fell silent again. The record showed grainy images from helmet cams. Shadows moving through sewers, slipping past checkpoints, marking targets with silent flashes of light. One by one, enemy watchtowers went dark. One by one, command relays cut out no explosions. No loud charges. It's just silence spreading like fire. An alien commander's voice crackled over intercepted comms. Sector 9, report. Sector 9, static Sector 12. Status. You've lost static within hours. The entire command structure collapsed. Generals shouted into dead channels. Troops panicked as orders never came. By dawn, the defenders had weapons, numbers, and walls, but no leadership. The city fell without a major battle. Operational time, 3 hours, 41 minutes. Civilian casualties, minimal. Enemy command, erased. Elan stared at the data. His heart pounded in his chest. They destroyed an army without fighting the army itself. He whispered. Voss nodded slowly. That is why mercenaries refuse. That is why empires tremble. Because no soldier can fight without orders, and no order survives once humans decide to cut the lines. But how? Elan asked. How do so few achieve so much? The keeper's strange eyes blinked one after the other. Discipline, planning, and something more. Something the rest of us do not have. What? They do not fight to win, Voss said. They fight to end. When the report of Operation Silent Storm was presented to the council, chaos erupted. Some shouted it was false. Others demanded Earth explain, but the human delegation remained silent. Watching like statues, the prime speaker's voice cracked as she struck her staff. Order! We must know if Earth intends to unleash these forces again. If the frontier is lost, is it already too late? All eyes turned to the human officer at the delegation's front. His face was calm, unreadable. He spoke only one line, silent. Storm was years ago. We ended that war quickly. We'll end this one the same way if we must. The words rippled like thunder through the chamber. No boast, no threat. Just a quiet promise. Later, alone in his quarters, Elan replayed the images from the file. Shadows slipping through streets. Towers going dark. Soldiers lost without orders. And he realized the truth that made the galaxy tremble. Humans did not need vast fleets or endless armies. They needed only a handful of men and women in the dark, calm, silent, unstoppable. He thought of Kureth, the broken survivor. He thought of mercenaries who refused all pay. He thought of the council, silenced by one human's calm voice. The pieces fit. The fear was not born of myth. It was earned one erased army at a time. A new message reached the council as the session ended. Another scout ship had gone silent at the frontier. This time, fragments of footage survived. The image froze on the chamber's great screen, a blurred human figure, visor glowing red, moving through smoke with terrifying calm. The hall erupted in gasps. Special forces confirmed, the messenger drone announced. The screen cut to static. Island stood frozen. His question from the beginning echoed in his own mind now. Why do they fear humans so much? And at last he understood part of the answer. Not because of stories, not because of whispers, but because every time Earth's special forces moved, wars ended before they even began. The storm had returned. The Galactic Council chamber was restless, filled with voices rising and falling like storm waves. The latest report had confirmed what many feared but few dared say aloud. Human special forces were active again. The blurred image of the soldier with the glowing visor still burned in every delegate's mind. The prime speaker slammed her staff for silence, but even that did not calm the tension. Empires that once mocked humans now argued in panic. Should they prepare for war? Should they retreat from the frontier? Should they call Earth to account or beg for alliance? No one agreed. No one dared decide. The chamber shook with noise. But the silence of the human delegation was louder. They sat at their seats, calm, unbothered, as if the chaos around them was beneath notice. Their officer leaned back, hands folded, eyes steady. Not a word, not a movement. That silence became unbearable. Finally, a warlord from the Zacher Dominion slammed his fist on the table. His voice was sharp and desperate. We cannot allow this. Humans are moving their shadows across our borders. What happens when they decide to turn them on us? Do you all want to wait until your command centers vanish in the night? Another counselor hissed in reply. Then what do you suggest? Attack them. Even your Dominion's mercenaries refuse to face them.
Ow.
You think your fleets will do better? The warlord's face darkened, but he had no answer. Eyes turned back to the humans, still silent, still calm. And that calm was worse than any threat. The prime speaker raised her voice. Delegates, enough. We must decide our stance. The evidence is clear, Worths. Special forces operate in the frontier, but their purpose remains unknown. Are they allies in this crisis, or executioners waiting to strike? The chamber broke into factions. Some called for immediate alliance with Earth, arguing that humans ended wars faster than any fleet. Others demanded sanctions, claiming humanity was too dangerous to trust. A few whispered the unthinkable, preemptive war. Before Earth's shadows reached deeper into the stars, the debate grew wild, but none wanted to speak plainly. Fear was a chain around every tongue. Ailen, the young envoy, rose again, his voice carried through the chamber, clear but trembling. We have heard survivors, he said. We have read files. We have seen mercenaries refuse, but none of us has asked the simplest question. Why do humans fight this way? Why do they cut wars from the roots, leaving nothing behind? If we do not understand their purpose, we cannot decide whether to fear them or follow them. Some laughed bitterly. Others muttered agreement. But his words pierced the noise. The prime speaker frowned. And do you propose we simply ask them? Ailen glanced at the human delegation there. Officer watched him, expression unreadable. For a heartbeat, Ailen felt as though the man was not looking at him, but through him. Yes, Ailen said softly. Ask them, or else remain prisoners of our fear. The prime speaker hesitated, then nodded. Very well, it will give Earth. The floor, the chamber fell silent as the human officer stood. His movements were unhurried, steady, controlled. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, yet it carried through every corner of the vast hall. Earth has no interest in conquest. He said, "We do not seek your worlds, your fleets, or your thrones. But when war comes, we end it quickly. We do not let it spread. We do not let it linger. We do not let it grow fat on innocent lives. That is why our special forces exist. To cut wars. At the root before they consume the galaxy." The officer's eyes swept across the chamber. If you call that fearsome, so be it. But understand this, the longer you debate, the more shadows will move. And when we act, the war will be over before you decide whose side you are on. He sat, no one spoke. The silence was total. The council was trapped. They could not oppose. Humans openly, not with mercenaries refusing and survivors trembling. They could not ally without admitting weakness. And so they sat, caught between pride and fear. While the shadow of humanity grew larger, the prime speaker whispered to her aides, voice almost broken, "What choice do we have? If we condemn them, they may erase us. If we join them, we admit. Our armies are useless. Either way, the balance of the galaxy changes." Island listened. He felt the weight of history pressing down. The galaxy had spent centuries mocking Earth, dismissing it as primitive, weak, insignificant. But now every leader in the chamber saw the truth. Humanity's power was not in fleets or worlds, but in the silence of their special forces. A sudden alarm cut through the chamber. A fresh transmission arrived from the frontier. The image was broken, filled with smoke and screams. Alien soldiers ran through ruined streets, weapons firing wildly. Shadows moved in the haze, too fast, too precise. Then the feed froze on one image. A human soldier standing in the rubble, visor glowing red, calm as stone. The transmission ended. The prime speaker's voice cracked as she whispered the words every leader now carried in their hearts. "If they fight for us, the war ends. If they fight against us, so do we." The chamber trembled under the weight of its own silence. The Galactic Council chamber had fallen into silence after the last transmission. A single human soldier, visor glowing red, standing calm in the rubble. That image haunted every leader. They whispered of options, but none dared to act. Every path seemed dangerous, every decision too slow. But the frontier did not wait for council debates. In deep space, beyond the burning mining station, an entire alien fleet prepared for war. Dozens of cruisers, carriers, and destroyers floated in formation, weapons armed, shields raised. Their commanders believed numbers would protect them. Their voices were filled with false courage. "They are few," one admiral barked. "We are many. Their shadows cannot break an ocean." The fleet's channels buzzed with forced confidence. Orders flew. Drones scanned the void. Soldiers waited at their stations. But beneath the noise was fear. Every officer knew the stories. Every pilot had heard the mercenaries' refusals. Every soldier had seen the blurred footage of humans moving too fast to track. Then, in the middle of the battle screens, something changed. The stars shifted, not by movement, but by absence. A shape, massive and silent, slipped across the void. At first, it looked like a shadow. But as it grew clearer, the fleet realized what it was. Human warship, it had arrived without warning, without broadcast, without any signal. No alarms had marked its jump. No sensors had tracked its entry. One moment the void was empty. The next, the warship was there quiet, dark. And watching, the alien fleet froze. On the flagship's bridge, the admiral's voice cracked. "Identify." "That ship? How did it enter our grid unseen?" No answer came. The technicians stared at their screens in disbelief. "No jump signature, no energy trail. It's just there, Admiral." The warship did not move closer. It did not arm weapons. It simply floated, a black shape blocking the stars. Its silence was worse than any barrage. The Admiral shouted again, but his own crew looked afraid to speak. Why are they not firing? What are they waiting for? Then the fleet's long-range sensors flickered. More distortions appeared at the edges of space. Small at first, then growing. One by one, more human warships emerged. Silent, patient. no signals. No boasts. The alien fleet, so large and proud, now found itself surrounded by shadows. Back in the Galactic Council, alarms filled the chamber. The Prime Speaker's staff shook as new reports streamed in. Human warships have arrived at the frontier. They have encircled the fleets. No warning, no declaration. They are simply there. Panic erupted. Some shouted to prepare their own navies. Others demanded immediate surrender to Earth. A few still insisted it was bluff. That humans could not hold so many fleets at once. But when the live feed played across the chamber screens, every argument died. The image showed alien ships trembling in formation, weapons ready but unmoving, surrounded by silent human vessels that did not even raise their shields. The silence itself was the weapon. Island sat frozen, scales shimmering faintly in the council lights. He remembered the words of the survivor Kareth. Soldiers can fight soldiers, but no one fights ghosts.
Ow.
He understood. The galaxy had always measured power by noise, by fleets burning bright, by armies clashing in. Open war. But humans fought with silence. They appeared without warning, erased commands, ended wars before they began. And the galaxy, no matter how vast, had no defense against silence. In the frontier, the alien admiral finally gave a desperate order. Open fire. Beams of energy and missiles streaked across space. The silence shattered with thunder, but the human warships did not answer in kind. They shifted once almost lazily, and the enemy fire vanished into nothing absorbed, erected, erased. Then, without a sound, the humans struck back. Not with massive barrages, not with burning suns of plasma, just precise strikes one ship. At a time, one engine at a time, one command deck erased in an instant. Each shot felt chosen, deliberate, surgical. The alien fleet, so proud and vast, crumbled like glass in a storm. Within minutes, the formation collapsed. Commanders shouted, but no orders reached their soldiers. Screens filled with static. Ships fled in panic, colliding with each other in the chaos, and through it all, human warships remained calm, silent, unstoppable. The Prime Speaker gripped her staff with trembling hands. "We must decide," she whispered. "If we call them allies, the war ends. If we call them enemies, it is already too late." The chamber was silent. Every leader stared at the screen, watching fleets die without sound. Island stood, his young voice carrying through the hall. "This is why mercenaries refuse. This is why survivors tremble. Humans do not arrive to fight. They arrive to end." No one argued. No one laughed. The truth was visible to all. The feed ended with one final image. The human flagship drifting slowly through the wreckage, its visor-like windows glowing red against the darkness. No words were spoken. No demands broadcast. Just silence. The Prime Speaker turned to the council, her voice hollow. "Pray they came as allies, for if they did not..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The chamber shook as fear spread like fire. Humanity had arrived unseen, unstoppable, and now every leader knew the truth. The galaxy did not fear humans for what they said. It feared them for what they never needed to say. The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, though every seat was filled. Leaders who had once laughed at Earth now sat pale and tense. The footage of the frontier battle replayed again and again. Human warships drifting calm through wreckage. Alien fleets shattered in minutes. No words spoken, no surrender asked, no terms offered. Only silence. Island, the young envoy, could feel the fear pressing down on the hall like a storm. He remembered the mercenaries' refusals, the survivors' haunted eyes, the files of Operation Silent Storm, and the warlords' trembling threats. Now it all made sense. Humans did not fight as others did. They did not fight wars at all. They ended them. The Prime Speaker rose, her voice shaking though she tried to sound strong. "Delegates, we stand at a crossroads. Forces are on the move again. Their fleets surround our allies. Their soldiers cut through armies without mercy. We must ask, do they come to fight for us or against us?" The chamber buzzed with voices, but none dared rise too high. Leader remembered the image of the human soldier in the rubble, visor glowing red, moving with calm precision. Finally, Island rose. His voice was clear, carrying to every corner. We have asked what humans are. We have asked why mercenaries refuse, why empires tremble, why survivors whisper, ink. But we have not asked the simplest question of all. Not what they do, not how they do it. But why? Why do humans fight this way? The chamber fell still. All eyes turned to the human delegation. The human officer stood. His steps were unhurried, his presence calm, yet his voice carried like thunder wrapped in quiet steel. Why do we fight this way? He looked across the chamber. Because war is disease. If you let it live, it spreads. It eats planets, devours people, and poisons generations. You debate borders and honor while millions die. We do not play such games. He paused, letting silence stretch like a blade. When humans fight, we do not fight to win. We fight to end. That is why. Mercenaries will not face us. That is why survivors break. That is why your council trembles. Because you fight for pride. We fight so no one has to fight again. He leaned forward, his eyes like burning stars. Understand this. We do not want your thrones. Do not want your tribute. But if war threatens us, or those we swore to, protect, we will end it. Quickly. Completely. Without hesitation, the chamber shook with whispers. Some called it arrogance, others called it justice. But none denied the truth. The prime speaker gripped her staff, her voice hollow. Hey. So this is why no one dares to fight Earth's special forces. It's not because of weapons or numbers or fleets, but because once they arrive, there is no more war. Only silence. The officer gave a small nod. Then you understand. And he sat, leaving the weight of his words behind like stone. Island felt his chest tighten. It searched for answers. In forbidden files, in broken survivors, in mercenaries who refused gold, and now he had them. The galaxy feared humans because they were not like other warriors. They were not conquerors or mercenaries. They were not driven by wealth or glory. They were the end of war itself. He stood again, his young voice steady with newfound strength. We all asked the wrong question. It was never what can humans do. It was always what will they do once war begins. And the answer is clear. No one dares fight Earth's special forces because when they step onto the field, the fight itself ceases to exist. A new transmission arrived. The frontier feed came alive, human special forces moving through. The smoke, calm and silent. An alien officer dropped his weapon, trembling, and raised his hands. The humans did not fire. They passed him by, focused only on the command posts. Within hours, the war was over. Entire armies laid down arms without a single demand spoken. The council watched in silence. The prime speaker whispered the words that now belong to history. They never fight because they never need to. The war ends the moment they arrive. The screen went dark. The chamber stayed still. And across the galaxy, every empire, every guild, every fleet understood the truth. Aliens feared humans not for what they said, but for what they did not have to say. Not for the battles they fought, but for the battles that never began. And so, the myth of Earth's special forces grew into legend. The end. Messages flew back to the Galactic Council. Contract declined. Guild refuses. Well, pay is enough. Even the most reckless bands, those who took jobs against impossible odds, answered the same way. They would fight monsters, machines, even empires. But they would not fight if humans were present. On the council floor, the refusals spread like fire through dry wood. Some shouted about cowardice. Others whispered about hidden truths. But one fact stood like a mountain, not a single mercenary guild would accept the contract. The young envoy Island watched all this with wide eyes. He had seen shadows in the archivum, but now he saw fear in living faces. Soldiers for hire, hardened, killers turning pale at the mention of humans. He sought out Rallen Vesk himself. Finding him in the dim corners of Kale Prime, The old mercenary sat with a cup of burning drink, staring at nothing. "Tell me," Island said, his voice low but steady. "Why do none of you fight them? What do you fear so much?" Rowland looked up, his eyes red with memory. "We fear them because they don't fight to win. Most armies fight to break the enemy, to make them surrender, to take ground. Humans, they fight until there is nothing left to fight. They fight until the war itself is gone. If you are in their way, you vanish with it." Island felt a chill down his spine. He wanted to ask more, but Raylan's face told him there were no more answers. Only scars. Back in the Grand Hall, the Prime Speaker slammed her staff, demanding order. "This is madness. Mercenaries have never refused a contract this rich. Is it about humans that makes even killers turn away?" No one answered. The human delegation remained silent, calm, their faces unreadable. One officer adjusted his sleeve. Another scrolled quietly on a pad. They looked bored, almost detached, as if the galaxy's fear did not touch them. But that silence spoke louder than any words. Island rose once more, his voice shaking but firm. "The Council must face it. If mercenaries, pirates, and whole fleets refuse to fight when humans stand on the field, then the truth is simple. The galaxy fears them more than war itself." The Prime Speaker glared at him, but others did not. Some counselors nodded, their eyes clouded with dread. And then, a new report came in. A scout ship had reached the frontier. Its last message was short and broken, filled with static. But one line was clear before the signal cut. "Shadows on the surface, moving too fast, not ours." The hall froze. All eyes turned again. To the Earth delegation, humans did not move, did not blink. Their silence was the loudest sound in the chamber, and Island understood. The refusals were not weakness. They were warnings. The council chamber still carried the echo of the scout. Ship's last words. "Shadows on the surface, moving too fast, not ours." Fear gripped the hall. Leaders who had never known silence now stared at each other with wide eyes. Even the most arrogant empires did not laugh. Everyone knew what the words hinted at, but Island, the young envoy, wanted more than hints. Whispers and refusals were not enough. He needed a voice. He needed someone who had stood in battle and lived to speak of it. His search took him to a prison station orbiting a dead moon. The hall smelled of rust and stale air. The guards barely looked at him. No one cared about a single broken alien locked away in the deep cells. The prisoner's name was Kareth, once a decorated commander of a proud empire. Dow, he was a shadow of a soldier, thin, scarred, and shaking. He'd survived a battle with humans long ago, but his survival was not victory. It was memory carved into his bones. When Island entered the cell, Kareth did not lift his head. His claws scraped the table slowly, rhythmically, like he was counting unseen seconds. "I am Envoy Island," the young one said softly. "I have questions about Earth's special forces." The prisoner froze. His claws stopped scratching. Slowly, he raised his head. His eyes were red, his face lined with fear that time had not erased. "Why?" Kareth whispered. "Why would you speak their name in here?" "'Cause no one else will," Island said, his voice trembling. "The council hides the truth. The mercenaries refuse. People whisper. But I must know. What did you see?" Kareth's breath came sharp, ragged. He leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a hiss. "I saw death wearing human faces." First, Kareth refused to say more. He sat in silence, trembling. But Island waited, patient, eyes steady. Finally, the words spilled out, broken and halting, like wounds reopening. It was the Battle of Syndral Gate. My division 10,000 soldiers stood ready to hold the city. We had artillery, armor, the high ground. We were confident. Shouldn't we be? Humans were small in number. A handful of squads. We laughed when we heard they were coming. His claws scraped the table again, hard enough to spark. Then they arrived, not with banners, not with noise. With silence, no horns, no signals. Just shadows slipping through streets. Kareth's voice shook as if the memory itself clawed at him. They didn't fight like soldiers. They moved like hunters. Our scouts vanished. Our coms died. By one, command posts went dark. By nightfall, half my division was gone. No great battle, no lines clashing, just gone. He pressed a trembling hand to his temple. They came for me last, heard their steps in the corridor. Not loud, not fast. Steady, patient, like death itself had all the time in the world. My guards fired, their weapons jammed. One screamed before a knife silenced him. Island leaned forward, his own chest tight. And you? How did you survive? Kareth laughed bitterly. Survive? Do you call this survival? They spared me. One soldier, his visor glowing red in the dark, looked at me and said, Run, carry the message. Tell them what we do. Island shivered. What message? Kareth's eyes burned with haunted fire. That humans do not fight for victory. They fight to erase war itself. If you resist, they end you. If you surrender, they watch you. But once they arrive, you will never be free of the fear, because they never stop. Not until the enemy is ash and silence. He gripped Island's arm with surprising strength. Tell your council this. Soldiers can fight soldiers, but no one fights ghosts. Island pulled back, shaken to his core. He had read files, seen numbers, heard whispers. Now he had seen the truth in living eyes. Kareth was not just broken. He was branded by the shadow of humans. When Island returned to the council chamber, he requested the floor once again. His voice carried through the vast hall. I have spoken to one who survived. He told me what none of us dare to admit. Humans do not fight as we do. They do not seek conquest or honor. They fight until war itself is gone. And that is why mercenaries refuse. That is why empires tremble. That is why silence falls whenever their name is spoken. The chamber erupted in voices. Some shouted denial, others demanded proof. But beneath the noise, fear remained. The prime speaker silenced them with a strike of her staff. You bring stories, envoy, nothing more? Until we see evidence, we cannot base policy on myths. But even as she spoke, a messenger drone entered the hall. Its metallic voice crackled. Council alert. Frontier scout ship destroyed. Black box recovered. Transmission clear. Human special forces confirmed on the surface. The chamber froze. Leaders who had mocked Earth before now sat pale and silent. Even the most powerful empires shifted uneasily. Island felt the weight of Kareth's words echoing in his skull. Soldiers can fight soldiers, but no one fights ghosts. On the council's great screen, the transmission played one last line, before cutting to static, a voice, broken with fear, whispering, They are here. No one dared speak, and in the silence, humanity's shadow grew longer. The council chamber was still heavy with silence. The black box recording had ended. The final words echoing through every mind. They are here. No one laughed. No one mocked. Even the loudest empires stared at the floor, willing to meet the human delegation's calm, steady eyes. But Island could not stop thinking of the survivor's warning. No one fights ghosts. He needed more than fear. He needed proof, history, something real, and the Archivum keeper, Mayor Voss, had promised there were darker records still. The vault door hissed open. Voss led Island into a chamber deeper than before, its walls lined with sealed cases of black crystal. The air was cold, thin, as if no one had breathed here for centuries. This, Voss whispered, is where the truth sleeps. The files so dangerous that the council erased them from public memory. Operations carried out by Earth's special forces. Some call them myths. Some call them lies. But they happened. And one of them, he touched a panel, was called Operation Silent Storm. File lit the chamber in white light. A battlefield map unfolded across the table, an entire city under siege. Towers burning, armored divisions moving through broken streets. The defenders were confident. They had numbers, weapons, fortifications. They believed no small force could breach their lines. But Earth's special forces were not a small force. They were a storm. The file began with a chilling order. Insert 6 teams. Time on target, 4 hours. Objective: erase enemy command.